Hi everybody, my name's Chris. I'm just submitting my first program for the apprenticeship program. Here you'll see me working with Catherine Potter's horse Kip. We've been working together for about 6 months now, but this is only our second time in this arena. It was his second time off property in about 3 years. So you'll see he's a little tense. It'll come up more in the lunging, but you'll see it a little bit throughout. So he's trying to pop his shoulder out and really fall to that wall because he hasn't been in a real arena for a while, so he wants the wall for support since he hasn't had one for a while. It's a habit we haven't been able to work on since we haven't had a wall. Can't fix a problem if the horse doesn't show a problem. So you'll see him trying to fall out, I'm not asking him for a shoulder in, he's just really throwing his haunches out and throwing his shoulder toward me. But he still has a nice stretch going here and a nice active walk, which is all we really needed, so we went ahead and stopped and swapped directions. So for anybody who doesn't know, Kip is a 20-year-old warm blood, and he's been doing Art2Ride for, I want to say about 6 years, but I've only been working with him for about 6 months. So he's been, he's been teaching me the ropes. So we swapped directions, and you can see he really wants to stay on the wall again. He's fighting me, so I'm asking him to go on a circle, but he just really wanted to stay on that wall. He is a very opinionated horse. He has it set in his mind that he wants to do something, and he knows his job, and I'm just an idiot, but once I show him that there's something to work on, what I'm trying to work on, he's a very agreeable horse. He likes to know, he likes to think he's in charge. But that's all right. So here we go back into the stretch. And because he had been trying to fall against that wall, this time I didn't even go near it, and you'll see he stayed on the circle. He wasn't trying to fight me because he knew the wall wasn't an option. But he's not quite stretching, so I'm lifting my reins a little bit, trying to put the bit up in the corner of his mouth. And I was using the whip. I don't know if you can see that. But he has a nice active walk here, and he goes right back into the stretch, which is exactly what we wanted. And this time he really wasn't fighting me at all for the wall, I don't think. So I just went ahead and stopped him, since we conquered that hurdle, and then we moved on to lunging. And here you'll see he's tense, he's looking around. I'm further away, so he thinks he can get away with more. So I'm staying a lot closer to him with the lunge line than I normally would, just trying to remind him that I was there. And I hadn't asked him for this trot, so I was just trying to stay nice and calm. You'll notice I have my body position turned away, so there was no driving force. We got right back to the walk, and he has this nice swinging walk. So as I said, I'm staying close, trying to keep him calm, not give him too much leeway to do anything silly. And it seems to be working here. And there he goes back into the trot, and he throws his head. Apparently I hadn't asked for it yet, so I just brought him back down to the walk. So that was his corner, I remember, throughout the workout. He really just wanted to trot every time he hit that spot. So I just asked him to walk. And I think I was trying to work him out on the lunge line so that he would have a little more room to trot when I was ready for it. So there he popped his head up, but he didn't trot at that place. He stayed and listened to me. So then I asked him to go up into the trot because I knew I had his attention a little bit better. So this is pretty typical. He likes to throw his head for at least half a circle, and then he stretches into the nice stretchy trot and relaxes. But since he was tense, you can see he doesn't quite have that loose swinging flow that we're accustomed to seeing with a lot of these horses. That's just, he's a little tense for this. It's a new situation for him. but he's trying to relax a little bit. So you see he's, I think, about to break into the canter. He's a little tense in that sometimes he jumps through the air and sometimes he just needs to canter and it'll help him settle down. So I went ahead and let him. See if it helped him loosen up, but seemed to make him more anxious this day. So now he's not stretching at all. Here we go. But I noticed he was just getting tense, so you'll see I'm slowing down my body language, asking him to stop. And we just went back to the walk. Since the trot wasn't being productive, we took it back to the walk just to reconfigure and settle down. So we have a nice walk again. And this looks much more relaxed than this trot. He's stepping under himself quite nicely. So then I just asked him to go right back up into the trot now that he'd settled down. And there he starts to stretch. There it is. You can see he looks much more relaxed in this trot than he did in the first one. So that tells me I made the right decision to go back into the walk. And that's all we needed. We don't want him too tired. So here I'm just asking him to walk again. And we're going to swap directions. He doesn't really like to stop. He'd rather just meander around while I do whatever I need to do, but he's not a big fan of standing still. So I just try to stay patient and make sure none of my body language cues are telling him to keep moving. You'll see he just starts walking as soon as he knows he's allowed to. So we go into a stretch again, but he's really tense, so he breaks into the trot and I just bring him right back. And there's that nice swinging walk. He's a little mouthy here and there. That's just from some of the tension. But he's loosening up. That's good. So I'm noticing while he's opening his mouth a little bit, it's not a constant mouthiness with the bit. And here I'm lifting my hand, asking him to stretch because he'd come up. So just similar to how you would do from the saddle, just lift the lunge line a little bit to try to get the bit up in the top corner of their mouth. Here you can see he's tossing his head. He's just not really settling down too quickly. Fighting me a little bit. But he has some good moments, like there. And there it is, nice and stepping under himself. He's not holding it, but he's warming up. And I'm just trying to keep my hand and the whip and everything nice and quiet, so I'm not doing anything to set him off more. And there he goes up into the canter. He's acting like a giraffe, so we just come back to the trot. Since we don't want to do anything the fewer hollow steps you can take, the better. So we just come back into the trot, not a big deal. And he's still just a little tense, but he's trying to stretch. Like right there is a good one. That's a good relaxation spot. He loses it again, so I just ask him back down and back into the walk, I think. Now, if I hadn't been planning on riding this day, I probably would have, just like I did to the left, I would have gotten him calmer in the walk again, and then back up into the trot. But since I was riding, he was warmed up enough, and I knew I could work on that under saddle, since he is strong enough to do a good solid saddle workout. And here you see a very nice walk, nice and relaxed, stepping under himself very nicely. So we just go ahead and stop. And what you didn't see was about half a lap of the walk, so I'm just asking him to stretch. And there we have it. So what we usually do is a lap of the walk, just asking for the stretch. So our only focus is just a big relaxed walk, just to warm up a little bit under saddle. So you can see he has his head up. So I'm lifting and widening my hands, trying to keep the contact. And definitely one thing I need to work on throughout is my hunter habits of pulling the inside rein to turn. So we definitely want to turn with our outside leg and just using the inside leg to push into the outside rein. But we're turning with our legs, not with our inside rein. So that's a habit of probably 11 years in the making that I need to work on. So here we turn down basically the quarter line. I was supposed to turn on the center line, and we're just doing a little leg yield back out to the wall, which he's more than happy to do. And you notice his stretch gets ever so slightly deeper there. We had a little trouble with the lateral work. As you can see, there's some equipment on the other side of the arena, so my turns were getting cut short. It wasn't such an issue in this direction. It was more of an issue to the right, since we didn't have a full side to work down. And when I was turning to get to the uninterrupted long side, my turn was cut a little bit short. But we made it work, and here we have a nice stretchy walk. Finally got into that stretch. Sometimes it takes a couple minutes. There's a nice walk. So I just go across the diagonal, I believe, and we do the same thing the other direction. So we just do one stretchy walk lap to the left, and our leg yields to the left. Since what we do on one side, we want to do the other as well. So I'm carrying a whip in my inside hand. Sometimes I need it on my inside, sometimes I need it on the outside. When we're at home not having a wall to work against, I usually have it on the inside because he can be a little reluctant to move over since he doesn't know where he's supposed to be moving over to. This ride I probably could have had it on the outside since he really wanted to stay on the wall. It was more of a turning that I was having an issue with, so it probably would have been smart to have my whip in the other hand, but that's alright. It's something to consider next ride. So here we have it's more of a working frame walk, but he's still working over his back and swinging nicely, so that's alright. And here I do a little mini leg yield, but as I said, we get cut short with the equipment, but it served its purpose, and you can see his walk loosened up and he stretched. And that's the sign of a good leg yield, good lateral movement, is the horse is using their back more and they want to stretch into the contact more. So here, this one's not as good because our corner was cut short, so he's really leading with his shoulders a little bit too much, but he still steps under himself, and he knows what to do, so we didn't drill it any more than that. So I believe we moved on to a shoulder in at this point, which is something that I'm still learning. First time I'd ever ridden one was on Kip about a month ago. So here you'll see I end up using my inside rein too much to turn him. So he's hollow and kind of fighting me for that turn since I was using my reins, not my legs. So that's definitely something to work on for me. But we still have a nice shoulder in here. perhaps a little bit overflexed in the neck because of my inside rein being a little too heavy, but he still did it nicely because he's a good boy. So we just went ahead and changed directions, and we're going to do the shoulder in the other direction. So I'm asking him to stretch. And you can see his walk is nice and swinging. That's a beautiful stretch there. He's stepping under himself. So I, at this point, always do a circle before my shoulder ins. One, because it helps set up the bend. And two, I think it helps with the routine of he knows we do a circle, and after we do that little circle, he knows I'm going to ask him for a shoulder in. So he knows what to expect, and then here's our shoulder in, and he actually stretches during the shoulder in, which is nice. We don't always get that. It looks like the neck isn't quite as overflexed in this direction. And that'll be the end of our walk work for this day. Since he did everything, we don't need to drill it. We got it first try. So I just get past the machinery and then go up into the trot. And we do the same exercises in the trot. So we start out with just asking for a stretch, because you can see he's a little hollow, a little tense. So I'm just lifting my hands and widening, and there he stretches down a little bit. So we do a circle, trying to, you can see I'm really struggling still with figuring out how to use my hands without just pulling. Circle helps a little bit. So we come down the long side. If I remember, he really just wanted to do, not correct, but he wanted to do a medium trot. He really didn't want to stretch, but I finally got it. And another factor, he might be tense because it was brutally cold for us this day. So we do our leg yield in the trot. Since what we do in the walk, we do in the trot as well, now that he's strong enough. And there's our stretch. And our leg yield on the other wall. Once again, we got it, so we're not going to drill it, so I think I went ahead and switched directions. Here he pops up out of the stretch, so I ask him to go down a little bit. Didn't work. So I just ask again, don't make a big deal out of it. So we're going to do a trot, one lap in the trot this direction, just asking for the stretch, asking for some relaxation. And then we'll do the leg yield in this direction. You can see he has a decent working trot here. And he's strong enough that that's alright. But I did ask for the stretch, so I'm doing a circle to see if I can get him to step under himself. There it is. So he can do the working trot, but I still want to know that when I ask him to stretch, he will. So he's staying nice in the contact there, even though it's not a big stretch. Turn down the center line, do our leg yield to the wall. Once again, maybe a little bit too much shoulder toward the wall, but you get the idea. It served its purpose. So we just come back down to the walk. And I believe I took a very, very short walk break, and then we went and did our canter work. So I made sure I had a nice trot first. So we did a circle, trying to make sure he was listening, and that would be him telling me I'm not using my hands or legs correctly. So I attempted to fix it, and he always throws his head into the canter transition. So I just sit back and ask him to stretch. So we're doing a circle, trying to get him to step under himself. You can see I still really need to work on my hands. I'm figuring that out. But there's a decent step, and every step is helpful. You want to get as many as you can, but it starts with one. So there's our nice canter. And there it is. And then I believe we come back to the trot because that's all we really needed. He stretched. He was listening. He was round. So we just come right back to the trot. And we do another circle since he's not stretching. And there it is. You can see his trot's loosened up from that first trot we did on the lunge line or even the first trot under saddle. He's not all the way in a stretch, but it's a lot looser, and he's a lot more consistent in the contact than he was. So we swapped directions, and then we took a nice long walk break because he was blowing really hard, and I didn't want to ask too much of him. I wanted to give him a nice break before we cantered the other way. So here we've had our walk break, and we swapped directions. And we're just doing the same thing, trot circle, trying to get nice and round, make sure he's working well before we go up into the canter. And there's a good trot, so I ask him the canter. And you see he still does that head throw, but then we go into a very nice canter. Trying to hold my outside rein, well, hold him into the outside rein with my inside leg, sitting back. And that was a really nice canter circle, it looked like. And he stays fairly stretched, not a super deep stretch, but he's nicely in the contact. So you go on a bigger circle, and I think we just go right back to the trot. So that was a very nice stretch stride there. So we go back to the trot and do our trot circle, even though he stayed relatively in the contact. There's our nice stretchy trot. So that walk break definitely helped because he was able to work more easily over his back. He was much happier to do it this direction, so I probably could have used the walk break before our canter going to the going to the right. But that's alright, you live and you learn. And we ended our workout on that. So thank you for watching, and have a great day.